The title of this video is specifically the discussion section in your paper. The big question is, what does it all mean? You've written a large document, might have some very complicated text in there, mathematics, engineering. What does it all mean? Well, the discussion moves are highlighting the overall results and their significance, explaining the specific research outcomes, what questions you're asking, what the limitations are of what you found, and indicating research implications and pointing people in particular directions. Let's unpack this a little bit more. Well, you're contextualizing the study. This is now starting to go back out again in your funnel. You're describing your established knowledge, presenting generalizations, claims, deductions, gaps, consolidating results, putting it all together, linking it back to literature. You're going back out, stating the limitations of the finding, methodology of the claims, and you can suggest future research there. So what can you do? Now, this section is often considered the most important part of the research paper, and if you go down to level 2 and you've gone past the abstract, you often jump into the discussion section because it's where you need to present the real importance of your study. It's where you take your abstract and you really focus in on the value. Now, it's not strictly governed by objective reporting. You're allowed to draw conclusions. You're allowed to draw some reasonably long bows here. You can jump a little bit around because you're blue sky thinking. Again, you're going back out. So you can think more broadly about the context and the impact of the field. Now, there's some things to avoid. Do not get more out of your results than you can. You can only squeeze them so hard. The data is the data. You can't claim more than what the data is. And don't derive superficial interpretations that just restate the results. You have to focus on what it means. What is the interpretation of these results? What does it say and why? So the rules, like all sections of the paper, be very concise. Don't be repetitive. Follow a logical stream. Talk in the present. The literature survey was in the past. When you did the work, it was in the present, and now you're moving into, okay, we've done this work, this is where it fits into the history. The time of this work is now. How do you organise it? Well, you're starting to come out again. You've done the work, you're relating it into the word. So use the same key terms that you use when describing the research problem in the introduction. Describe the patterns, principles, and relationship shown by the major findings and place them within a broader perspective. Organise the discussion and think about how you're funneling out. Second, you really need to tell the reader if there was any surprises. Do you find anything that you weren't expecting? The other thing too is you should not apologise. You may not have got as far as you wanted, but you don't want to say future work is something that could potentially be implemented in another week. Future work needs to be a significant jump. If something takes another week to implement, well, you should have taken that other week. So you need to actually point out substantial future work. So in the discussion, research problem, what was it? The findings, what does it mean? Why are they important? You're always thinking about why things are important. Related to similar studies, consider alternatives, acknowledge the limitations, and make genuine suggestions for further research. The title of this section is Conclusion and Appendices. We're getting to the end of the paper. So how do you say, this is the end? How do you say goodbye? Well, you start by placing the paper within the context of the field. Why is this important with respect to everything else that's been written? This is a chance to show off what you know about the field. Don't be shy. What's the key results? So what? Convey the larger implications. You're coming back out now. You're starting to say, this is where I fit in with all of the development that's going on. Introduce possible new or expanded ways of thinking about the problem. Be creative. Try and think of options for further exploration. You may not be planning on exploring these options at all, or your next piece of work might be to explore those options. Be careful what you put here, because if you're about to do something and you put it into a paper, a larger organisation with a whole research team, if they find your work and they find it interesting, they might decide to take you on. And if you're just one player, you're really going to struggle competing against a big team. So you have to take a little bit of care about what you put there. Sometimes you might want to throw other people off. It is a competitive business, but you do want to show how well you know the field. You want to demonstrate your competency in the conclusion. So, what do you need to do? Like anything else, be concise. Comment broadly. Be honest about any issues, anything negative about your work. Summarise what you learned. Was there a new insight? Discuss what the objective was and the extent to which you reached it. Don't apologise for your work. Negative Nancy, away. Don't apologise. Yes, there are other approaches. Yes, there is more you could do. Yes, there are projects with more money, more resources, better people, whatever. Don't apologise. You did what you did with what you had, and you got the results. At this stage, you don't introduce new information. The rest of the paper was the new information, and there are no announcements in the conclusion. In this conclusion, just get into it. Now, with appendices, a separate appendix should be used for each distinct topic. Anything which is not an essential part of the text and is often quite large will get moved into appendix. So if there's something which is really needed to understand the problem, move it down into appendix. I actually haven't used appendices very often because I'm generally able to summarise and include the data in the paper, but it's an option. So they contain any non-essential information. It's generally pretty large, so actually inserting it into the paper makes it poorly structured because it might flow over multiple columns in a 2-column paper. So you pull it out and keep the paper neat. So to ensure inclusion of helpful, supporting or essential material that would otherwise clutter or break up the flow, refer to it, get it out of there. Typical contents: some raw data, some specialised data, some sample calculations, technical figures, statistics, detailed descriptions of things. Really kind of dense information that's at a very strong data level, that's large enough to be moved off. Other sorts of things: questionnaires, longer interviews, field notes, longer things which are kind of separate pieces of data in their own right.